Thank you all so much for bringing your expertise and time to today's hearing. We're privileged to be able to engage with you. Certainly on this topic, we have two choices. We can either embrace the need for climate change action and the embracing of climate science through fear, or we can embrace it through opportunity. And I am so grateful that Dr. Mahawald was able to bring her testimony to us through video. And my questions are for you, if we're able to ask questions of her. Are we able to do that? Okay, fabulous. So how are we as a country measuring up globally in terms of the actions that we are taking around federal investments to develop innovative technologies and solutions to address the impacts of climate change?
Thank you very much for the question. Are you hearing me? Good.
Yeah.
In the United States, it is starting to get the momentum to deal with climate change mitigation and adaptation. Much of the adaptation efforts, of course, have started at the local level, but they need to be moving across local, state, and federal levels. We need to be dealing more with the adaptation efforts for climate change, as well as mitigation across the board. At this point, the federal efforts have not been consistent with what needs to happen for the ambitious targets for climate change. And some of the states have been reacting much more ambitiously than others. And there's several studies suggesting that federal level coordination of the states' efforts is much more efficient for the whole system in terms of transitioning to lower carbon mitigation targets. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I happen to represent suburban Metro Detroit, the home of the nation's automotive sector. And our automotive industry is in the race for the future, particularly around energy efficiency. And they see where China and Europe is moving, and they're sort of waiting on the United States. And so I was wondering if you could shed a little bit more light in terms of any projections that you might have that our country could capture in terms of a return on investment. Should we be making the right strategic investments to lay the foundation for our industrial sector to be making the investments in carbon neutrality?
Well, the transportation sector is an important sector, and of course, Detroit is the home of that in the United States. Our competitors are investing heavily in low carbon options. China is trying to get rid of internal combustion engines. India also has efforts in this area. The United States has the technological and the business innovation advantage. If we can use this, we can maintain our advantage in the automobile industry and other industries as well. But more coordination at the federal level, across the federal, state, and local level will really help in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's fair to say that there's the if not but for role that government can play. Certainly, industry is making their investments, but they're waiting on the federal government to lay the foundation, set the table, as we have in many ways, where we created the highways and we plow fields, but we need to set the table. And I want to get Dr. Coppin just quickly with my remaining time available, because you also mentioned this in your testimony, saying that climate change is not just an environmental challenge, it's an economic challenge, it's an infrastructure challenge, a public health challenge, and a national security challenge. And while we have your great expertise in the room, I was wondering if you could maybe give us a few points around how the U.S. can continue to be a leader in addressing the impacts of climate change while also maintaining our global economic power.
Well, I want to come back to the thing I said at the very end of my remarks, which is that we need to make climate change a routine and integrated part of decision-making, public and private sector, federal, state, and local. Right? We make lots of decisions particularly when we think about, say, infrastructure investments, or particularly when we think about national security, that play out over decades. And anytime we're thinking about changes over decades, we're thinking about a world where the climate is changing in ways that we can project. And so we have to move beyond using the past as a guide to what we do. And when we're building a new rail tunnel under the Hudson, say, or we're building new water infrastructure, right? Those need to be planned with all of the range of possible futures that we might project in mind.
Yeah, thank you. I yield back the remainder of my time.